The First Descendant is holding a steady stream of players, meaning a lot of people are probably wondering if they can push and pull a few levers to get the best performance possible while on the grind. We've got you covered with a few tips that will help get you the smoothest experience possible, so let's get into it. First up, we'll start with PC. Obviously, there are a ton of options to consider here depending on your particular setup and playstyle, so it doesn't hurt to start with the default recommendations and then adjust from there to get you a higher frame rate. That's what we're targeting here. This is a shooter. We want the best frame rate we can get. One of the things I recommend turning off immediately is ray tracing. It's simply not implemented well and will cost a staggering amount of performance for little return visually. Motion blur is another setting that I almost always turn off in all games. It's become mostly used as a way to cover up any sort of imperfection in a game, and in the First Descendant, it is particularly jarring. If you really love motion blur, you can turn it on, of course, but by default, I will always recommend turning this setting off. Getting into the finer details, our friends over at Rock Paper Shotgun have put the game through its paces and found some very easy ways to optimize and bump up your FPS. Really, there are only a few things you need to adjust to get some big gains in performance. Starting off, if you drop down from ultra to high, you're going to see big improvements across the board, which sort of goes without saying, but you'll also maintain most of the visual quality of the game. Should you choose to dive into additional settings, the main option you'll want to consider is DLSS quality mode that could see you double your FPS while maintaining high quality, as would FSR frame generation, but FSR may not feel as smooth. Shadows can be dropped to medium or lower for a significant FPS boost with very little change in your overall visuals. Objects should be dropped to medium should you be above that by default for another boost in frame rate. And while you might think that dropping down reflections would help, it really doesn't do much at all. Obviously, I have a powerful machine, but making these changes had me seeing over 100 FPS regularly. Of course, this all depends on your graphics card and CPU, so if you need to drop your base resolution down to 1080p or drop any of these settings lower, this would be a great place to start looking to hone in on each setting until you get it to your liking. On console, your best settings will always start with your television. We'll be using a Samsung model as an example, but refer to your manual for more specific instructions should you have a different model. On our Samsung TV, the first thing we'll want to do is turn on game mode. This will allow us to use a higher frame rate and variable refresh rate on both consoles. Now, on our console, we'll want to set it to output at the highest resolution and frame rate available with variable refresh rate turned on. The TV settings will allow you to turn on these features. Having these settings set to on the console level will allow you to turn on these features in any game that supports it. Under your PlayStation 5 console settings, turn on variable refresh rate, 120Hz output, and auto low latency mode or ALLM if your television supports it. These settings should always be left on regardless of the game you're playing, as it'll often smooth out performance issues or unlock new options in titles like Marvel's Spider-Man 2 that you otherwise wouldn't have. In addition, be sure you select HDR should your television support it for the best looking visuals possible on all your PlayStation 5 games. On Xbox Series X, you'll want to start by ensuring your console settings are set up correctly. To do this, go to Settings from your Xbox dashboard, then under General, go to TV and Display Options. Under Advanced, go to Video Mode, and if your TV supports it, select Allow Auto Low Latency Mode, and also set Variable Refresh Rate to On. In addition, select HDR10, HDR, and Dolby Vision for gaming should your television support it. Now, console versions of First Descendant offer a fidelity, balanced, and performance mode. We highly recommend performance mode because this is a shooter and the majority of the time will be spent shooting, which simply feels better at a higher frame rate. Turn off frame generation, motion blur, and ray tracing in the options. They are not necessary, and just like with PC settings, they don't offer much, and options like motion blur will simply make gameplay feel worse, at least in my opinion. And really on console, those are the best settings we recommend for First Descendant. I completely realize that everyone will come to their own conclusion about what they prioritize with the game, but this should give you a much smoother overall feel, but let us know if you found something that worked for you in the comments below. If you'd like to know how to unlock Descendants for free, we put together a quick guide on how that is done in First Descendant, and for more on all things gaming, keep it here on IGN.